Alex, thanks for agreeing to talk to Forbes. I was wondering, when did you come to the point where you thought, okay, I've made it now, made some money, I need to start giving back? Can you remember that kind of time when you thought it's time to start kind of actively being a philanthropist?
I think I share with a lot of people that at an early age I know the importance of giving back. The challenge is always how to give back. And a lot of times you don't have a really good understanding when you're young. And I made a lot of mistakes in giving back. But at the age of 21, 22 years old, I started giving back. And I just like to think that over the last 3 or 4 years, I have found a better comfort spot on how to give back and reach more people and think more global.
So can you tell us a bit about maybe one of those early mistakes? Was it a case of you just deciding to write a check you didn't know it was going, or?
I think a lot of that. I think it's giving out a lot of checks, trying to fill in every hole and be all things to all people. I think listening to Oprah this morning, she alluded to that a lot. I think a lot of philanthropists or people that just want to give back make a lot of the same similar mistakes. So one of the things I've tried to bridge into is really team up with great organization who have all the back office, who have a great track record, and then you can attack some of your great passions and some of the great needs that there's out there.
So can you tell us a bit about your, personally what you've been doing recently philanthropy-wise?
For me, it's all around based on education. I think education is more important today than any time in our history. There was a time probably in the era of our grandparents or even our parents, that without an education, you can go out and work in a factory and work really, really hard and make a good living for you and your family. I think today's day and age has tremendous challenges, and I think education is the way out of the neighborhood, out of the hood, how they say it, and it gives you an opportunity to do great things. Especially in the business world, is very challenging today. So I work very closely with the University of Miami. I sit on their board, and I've helped build their baseball field and work on different scholarship programs that we've had that going on for about 6 years. The Alex Rodriguez Scholarship Program. I've sat on the board with the Boys and Girls Club for a long time. For me, the Boys and Girls Club was one of the biggest platforms for me to develop my skills. My mother worked 2 jobs growing up, and if it wasn't for the Boys and Girls Club, I believe I wouldn't be here today. So I give back to them. I built a whole computer center at the Boys and Girls Club in Miami, where I grew up. And the way we have it, the program is that when the kids come in from after school, we basically demand that they go into the Alex Rodriguez Computer Center and work on all their homework and kind of finish all their work before we allow them to go out into the field and play sports. And it's in that order for a reason, because we always think education, 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 and then you can go out and play your sports. And the last thing I've started this year is a straight A's program for kids. So we started really organic in the Bronx. Any kid that brings me a report card with straight A's, I bring him and his parents over to watch a Yankee game on me. And we've done two big ones. We bring them in, we give them a big care package they take home, and I also give them about a 20 or 30 minute speech on all the similarities that we have, all the naysayers, how they were saying that about me, and how I was sitting in their chair just some years ago, and if I made it, why can't you? And that's been really a phenomenal thing.
So a lot of your giving is based on your own experiences as a child.
Yes.
Now tell me a little bit, obviously you're relatively young still. What would your advice be to, I suppose, someone in your position, whether that be a fellow athlete or someone, say, a Mark Zuckerberg type in Silicon Valley who comes upon, a good deal of money quite young? Do you have any recommendations, advice, suggestions for someone like that?
Yeah, the first recommendation is always take it really slow at anything you do, whether if you just made a lot of money or if you just came into power. I think a lot of the greatest mistakes are always made in the first 6 months, because we want to be impulsive and emotional. 2 things you never want to be in business and philanthropy. So the first thing is take it slow. And then really, philanthropy is all about the heart and what means most to you. And obviously, great partnerships are always good, both in business and in philanthropy. And if you can find organizations that you can run your passion and your energy and your vessel through, for me, I think that's always the best match, because I think starting your own foundation is extraordinarily challenging.
If you could give it all away right now, all the money you've accrued during your career, what cause would it be towards and why?
That's a tough one. Anytime it's just one is a difficult question, but it's a fun one. It would probably be one organization that I understand. And again, whether it's business or philanthropy, I like to do things that I really grasp, that are tangible to me and I understand it. It'll probably be based around somewhere on the Boys and Girls Club and building fields out there and trying to connect that with education. That would be my pick.
Good answer. Is there a philanthropist that you particularly look up to? Who do you think is the greatest philanthropist of our time? Somebody who's given away money and you've seen, what they put it into, and you respect them as a philanthropist.
That's a tough question. When you talk about, if you just want to use a scale of resources, you have to put obviously Bill Gates and Warren Buffett up there 1 and 2, because they've done so much or have pledged to do so much. But the greatest thing about philanthropists, and we've been talking a lot about it today, is the fact that it comes in many sizes and shapes. And, for me, I really admire someone that puts in the time just as much as the resources and the passion and the compassion to help others. There's a lot of people in my field that do a lot of great work. And, take one for the Yankees, we've started Hope Week. And it's basically Jason Zillow, our PR guy, came up with this idea to go into our great community of New York and think of 5 extraordinary stories, people, families that have done phenomenal things, and we go into their community, surprise them, and celebrate it with them, and using the Yankee platform to help some amazing stories. And that's happening now for the 4th year. So you take the Yankee platform and you take Hope Week, and doesn't have a lot of money, but it's taken a lot of time and a lot of energy, but it's been a great cause.
Great. Now, let me ask you one more question, and I'll let you out of the hot seat, figuratively and literally, because it's burning under these things. Okay. This is a little bit of a cheesy one, and if you don't answer it, fine, but maybe you do know one. Tell me one amazing story that you know of philanthropy that would break your heart.
Well, I'll give you, there's many, but I'll give you one that just happened just 3 weeks ago. So our pitcher, Andy Pettitte, who's a great legend pitcher for the Yankees for a long time, he was in a Double-A start getting ready for on the trail of his comeback to the big leagues just a few months ago. And there was a kid sitting in the front row watching him. And when Andy Pettitte finished his warm-up tosses, he gave this ball to this kid. Fast forward, 2 weeks later, we find out this kid is legally blind and was an albino kid, and asked his mother. I said, "Mom, what was this?" And she said, "Well, Andy Pettitte gave you that baseball, and he thought it was the neatest thing ever, and he's never played baseball. And since, he's basically asked his mother, 'Can you introduce me to baseball? I want to start playing.' And since, he's played about 5 or 6 T-ball games, and that's the start of something really beautiful. I mean, just from a really simple thing that Andy Pettitte did. And the kid's playing baseball now, and I thought that was a great story.
So I know you're really passionate about education and SAT awareness. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, one of the things is when I talk to a lot of youth, kids in the Bronx, Washington Heights, one of the first questions I ask is, by a show of hands, and these kids are junior high kids, can you show me how many kids are aware of the SAT test? And literally, if you have a group of 100, you might have 1, 2, or 3, maybe 5% of the room, which is not nearly enough. And one of my missions in life is really to bring awareness about what is the SAT test, what does it mean, what are the ramifications of this great test, and our communities need to know that. And I'm really focused on that, not only for my career but post-career, is to travel really the U.S. and tell our youth the importance of education, testing, and SAT testing.
So this is really to make sure that these kids are prepared for college, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it starts in 7th or 8th grade. I mean, when they drop the SAT test on you as a junior, you're like, what's the purpose of this test? Well, it may mean the rest of your life. How you score on this test may have a huge impact on A, where you go to college, and B, what's going to be your future as an adult.